The stone struck hard against the wooden shutter, rattling it on its hinge. A boy's laugh followed, sharp as a whip crack in the still heat. Another rock hit, splintering paint, and then the shuffle of boots running down the dirt road. Inside, Mary Whitlock stood at the window, her hands still dusted in flour from kneading bread. The loaf sagged, half-shaped, on the scarred pine table. She pressed her palms into her apron, steadying herself, listening to the last echoes of mischief fade into silence. Her breath came slow. She did not move for a long moment. The wind shifted. Dust rolled in through the gaps between boards. Outside, the horizon shimmered with heat, the desert sun pressing down until every sound seemed to groan beneath it. At the well, the rope groaned as she pulled, muscles straining against the weight of water. The bucket sloshed, nearly slipping, but she caught it, arms trembling. She set it down and looked toward town. A single rider passed in the distance, hat brim low, not turning his head. She straightened her back, carried the water inside. Later, in the general store, her voice was calm as she set eggs on the counter. 2 dozen. Mr. Harlan peered over his spectacles, weighing each in turn, clicking his tongue. Scrawny. Could crack him with a breath. His scales tipped too light, and his fingers brushed a coin back into his pocket before she could see. Not worth near full trade. Mary's jaw tightened. She said nothing. Behind her, whispers stirred like dry grass. That's the cursed one. Should have left with the last cattle drive. Bad luck follows a woman, can't keep a man alive. She gathered her basket, coins clinking smaller than they should. Harlan's smirk stayed fixed as she walked past, her boots striking against the floorboards. Outside, sunlight blazed white, and her shadow stretched long against the dust. A group of women lingered near the church steps. Bonnets dipped as she passed, their eyes hard beneath lace brims. One let out a laugh, muffled behind her hand. Mary's steps did not falter. She kept her gaze forward, though her grip on the basket handle whitened her knuckles. Her homestead waited at the edge of town, a crooked fence, roof sagging under too many seasons. She pushed open the door, set the basket down, and stood in the silence. Boards creaked a lonely echo. The smell of earth, dry and sharp, filled the single room. She took her husband's old rifle from the mantel. The stock bore scratches where his hands once held it. Her fingers brushed them, pausing. She lifted it, sighted down the barrel at nothing but the wavering line of desert heat. A breath in, a breath out. Then she set it back. At dusk, she mended the fence, hammer striking against bent nails, each blow ringing thin into the evening air. Children's laughter drifted from town, faint and cruel, but she kept working until her hands blistered. Blood welled at her palm, but she pressed on, wrapping cloth around the wound, shoulders stiff with the effort. Coyotes howled as night fell. The wind whispered through broken boards. She sat by the oil lamp, darning a shirt by hand, her needle flashing through the cloth. Shadows stretched tall across the walls, flickering with each sputter of flame. A knock rattled the door. She froze. Silence followed, then the scrape of boots retreating. When she opened it, a stone lay at the threshold with a note tied in twine. She picked it up, unwrapped it. Widows don't last long. The paper crumpled tight in her fist. She did not speak, did not cry. She tucked it into the stove and watched the flame consume it. Morning came with the hiss of cicadas and the hammer of sun. She led her mule to water, its ribs stark beneath its hide. The bucket lowered, came up half full, sloshing. Sweat stung her eyes. On the horizon, cattle moved like dust clouds, ranch hands calling, their laughter carrying sharp across the plain. Mary turned back to her land. Dry rows where corn once stood, fence posts leaning, soil cracked like old bone. She knelt, pressed her palm against the ground. The earth gave nothing back. By noon, she was in town again, passing the saloon. Laughter spilled through swinging doors, harsh and drunken. 2 men lurched out, their spurs jangling. Careful now, one jeered, blocking her path. Lady's got no man to walk her home. Easy prey for the wolves. His companion snorted, breath sour with whiskey. Don't waste breath. She's already cursed. You marry her, You're in the ground before winter. Their laughter rang loud. Mary's gaze met theirs, cold as steel, though her face stayed calm. She stepped past without a word. Behind her, their voices followed like burrs in the wind. At the church that Sunday, she sat alone on the last pew. Heads turned, then turned away. The preacher's words echoed hollow through the rafters. Trials come to test us, brethren. Sins weigh heavier on some souls than others. The congregation hummed their agreement, voices blending, while Mary bowed her head. Her hands clasped in her lap, nails digging into her skin. After service, as folks spilled into sunlight, no one spoke to her. Dust swirled where wagons rolled past. Children clung to mother's skirts, eyes wide, worn silent. Mary walked home alone, her figure small against the vast plain, bonnet pulled low, dress hem catching dust with every step. That night, the wind rose. Shutters banged, and the house groaned. She sat by the fire, staring into its orange glow. Outside, wolves called. Nearer this time, their cries rolling long across the canyon. Her husband's chair sat empty across from her. She reached for the rifle again, laid it across her knees, and listened. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind pressed close, as though the house itself leaned in to watch her. The lamps sputtered. The fire hissed. She did not flinch. The rocks, the whispers, the notes, they had not broken her. Not yet. But the desert was patient, and so was she. Price stands. Harlan snapped, slamming his hand flat against the counter. Take it or leave it. The store went quiet. All eyes turned. Mary stood still, basket on her arm, lips pressed tight. A silver coin slid across the counter with a sharp ring. Harlan's scowl twitched as a shadow fell beside Mary. Jedediah Cole stood there, broad-shouldered, coat brushed clean despite the dust. His voice cut through the hush, steady low. You'll take her trade, Harlan. And fair weight this time. The shopkeeper's mouth worked, but no words came. He adjusted the scale, placed back the coin he had palmed earlier, hands clumsy under Jedediah's gaze. Mary's jaw clenched. She gathered her things without looking at the rancher, boots striking hard against the boards as she left. Outside, heat pressed heavy. A horse stamped impatiently by the hitch rail. Jedediah followed, tipping his hat against the sun. Ma'am. His voice carried, not loud, but enough to draw glances from passers-by. Mary did not turn. Her bonnet hid her face, but her steps quickened, the dust of the road rising at each stride. He watched until she was gone from sight, then swung into the saddle. His horse shifted under him, iron shoes sparking against stone. With a nudge, he rode slow through town, the stairs following. By evening, he appeared at her homestead. The fence leaned worse than last season, posts split and wire sagging. He set down a bundle of lumber from his wagon, stacking it against the barn wall. Mary came from the field, hoe in hand, skirt hem torn. She stopped short, eyes narrowing. I didn't ask for that. Jedediah straightened, brushing sawdust from his gloves. Didn't say you did. She set the hoe aside, hands on her hips, the sun behind her casting her in shadow. Take it back. No, his tone was flat, final. The air between them hung heavy. Crickets sang in the grass. She turned, walking past him into the house, the door shutting hard. He stood a moment longer, then climbed back onto his wagon and left, wheels crunching over dry earth. The next morning, the posts were set straight, wires taut. Mary worked alone, hammer rising and falling. Sweat streaked her temples. The lumber he left stood in a neat pile, untouched. By week's end, he came again. A sack of grain rested in the wagon bed. She stood at the doorway, arms crossed. You think me charity? I think you're proud. Pride feeds no one. He dropped the sack by the threshold, met her stare, and walked away. In town, whispers grew like weeds. Cole's taken to the widow. Why waste his coin on a barren field? Reckon she's hexed him same as her man. The saloon buzzed with laughter, men spitting tobacco and slapping tables. Jedediah sat at none of their games. He leaned against the bar, whiskey untouched, gaze steady on the mirror that reflected every face behind him. None dared speak the jest aloud within his hearing. But Mary felt it in every turned shoulder at church, every snicker as she passed. The town's eyes burned hotter than the sun. One night, a clatter shattered her silence. Two riders, drunk, circled her gate. Widow Whitlock, one called, voice thick with whiskey, "Your new rancher forgot to claim you proper." The other howled with laughter, spurring his horse closer. The animal kicked at her fence, boards snapping. Mary stood at the doorway, rifle leveled, lantern light glinting on the barrel. "Off my land." The laughter stopped sharp. The riders shifted, muttering. One spat, then pulled his reins. Dust rose as they rode off, cursing into the dark. When the night fell still again, she lowered the gun, hand steady, face set hard as stone. By dawn, Jedediah was there, hat brim low, horse lathered with sweat. He saw the splintered boards, the prints in the dirt. His eyes found hers. "Name them," he said. She shook her head. "Wouldn't change a thing." He dismounted, stood firm. "Changes everything." Her lips pressed thin. She turned away, but his words followed. "Town won't stop, Mary. Not till you stand under my name." The air seemed to still. She froze in the doorway, her back to him. His voice was iron when he said it, each word carrying across the dry wind. "I'll take you as my bride." The silence after was deeper than night. From the barn, the mule brayed once, sharp and startling. In town, a dog barked distant. Mary's hands trembled where he could not see. She gripped the doorframe until her knuckles whitened, her face hidden in the shadows. Behind them, the desert stretched endless, waiting. The first shot cracked in the night, shattering glass from the upper window. Mary dropped low, dragging the lamp down with her. Smoke curled from the wick, the flames snuffed in her fist. Outside, hooves thundered past the ranch house, followed by laughter, sharp, mean, fading into the dark. Jedediah burst through the door, rifle in hand, eyes sweeping the shadows. "Stay inside," he growled. But Mary was already on her feet, glass crunching under her boots. She pulled the curtain aside, just enough to see. A steer lay dead in the corral, blood black in the moonlight. A message scrawled on the barn in coal: "Leave or die." At dawn, the ranch hands gathered. Their voices carried, low and uneasy. "Kane's men. Testing ground. Won't stop here." Jedediah's jaw worked, silent. Mary stood beside him, bonnet pulled low, face hidden. She felt every eye on her, the weight of their doubt pressing harder than the sun overhead. By week's end, another strike came. Fence lines cut, cattle scattered across dry fields. The men cursed, worked to drive them back. Dust rose thick, swallowing shouts and whistles. Mary rode into the chaos, skirts whipping against the saddle. She leaned low, lasso coiled in her hands, eyes sharp. With a snap of her wrist, the rope flew, tightening around a steer's horns. She braced, muscles straining, pulling the beast to a halt. The men stared. Not one had seen her ride before. She gave no word, only wheeled the horse, drove another back through the gap. That night, silence clung heavy to the bunkhouse. The hand spoke in hushed tones. "Widow's no widow. She rides like she's done it all her life." But the attacks worsened. Cattle poisoned. Wells fouled. Men ambushed on the trail, left bleeding in the dust. Each time, Kane's riders vanished before a gun could answer. One evening, as storm clouds piled black on the horizon, the ranch yard erupted in shouts. 5 riders charged the gate, pistols flashing. Horses screamed, men scrambled for cover. Mary stepped from the porch, rifle in hand. The first shot she fired split the air, knocking a hat clean off one rider's head. The second struck a lantern on the fence, glass bursting in flame. Horses reared, panic scattering the attackers. Jedediah's men fired wild, chasing them off, but it was Mary they watched when the smoke cleared. She stood still, rifle steady, face carved from stone. "Hell," one whispered, "she don't miss." The story spread faster than the fire she'd lit. At the saloon, whispers turned to wide-eyed retellings. Shot the hat clean through. Drove 5 men off single-handed. Didn't blink once. But along with all came fear. Women turned sharper at church. Men spat more openly on the street. Harlan sneered when she passed, muttering loud enough for all to hear. Rancher's wife or not, She brings death wherever she goes. Mary ignored him, but the words clung like burrs. She felt them even as she scrubbed blood from her palms after mending a wounded hand. The nights grew restless. Coyotes howled closer. Dogs barked without cause. Mary lay awake, rifle propped at the bedside, listening to every creak. One night, she rose, unable to bear the stillness. She stepped outside. The moon washed the land silver, the wind tugging her hair loose. Her eyes fell to the barn wall, to the coal-scrawled threat still faintly visible. She ran her hand across it, fingers blackened. Her breath came slow, steady. When dawn broke, she was already at the corral, rifle in hand. A rattlesnake slithered near the posts. She raised the gun, fired once. The snake's head vanished in the dust. 2 more shots rang out. 2 more snakes struck clean. Jedediah stepped from the house, eyes narrowing at the smoke rising from her barrel. 3 shots, he said. 3 snakes, she answered. He studied her a long moment, then nodded once. Let him whisper. Truth don't need defending. But the whispers grew louder. By sundown, the saloon hummed with wagers. How many men would Kane bring? How long before Cole fell? How quick would the widow break? The town watched her every move. Children pointed. Old men muttered. Women turned their backs. And through it all, Mary walked straight, her eyes never dropping, her rifle always near. The horizon glowed red each evening, storm clouds gathering heavier with each day. Everyone knew the fight was coming. Only the question remained, when? Dust boiled on the horizon, black against the red dawn. Hooves thundered closer, a dozen riders fanning wide across the plain. Guns glinted in their hands. Voices rose in sharp cries that carried to the town below. Mary stepped out from the ranch house, coat whipping in the wind. Her rifle hung loose at her side, lantern light still flickering behind her. Jedediah stood at the porch, his shotgun braced, jaw hard. The town gathered at distance, faces pale, pressed along porches and fence rails. No one spoke. Children clung to skirts wide-eyed. Kane's men swept into the yard, horses skidding, dust choking the air. Silas Kane himself rode at the front, black hat low, grin sharp as a knife. Cole! His voice tore across the silence. Time's up. Leave the land, or be buried under it. Jedediah stepped forward, but Mary moved past him first. Her rifle snapped up, barrel steady. The yard froze. Wind hissed through dry grass. Last warning, she called, voice cold as stone. Laughter broke from Kane's men, harsh and mocking. One rider spurred his horse, gun lifting. The shot cracked before his finger touched the trigger. He toppled sideways, dust swallowing him. Silence slammed down, broken only by the horse's scream. Mary lowered the rifle, smoke trailing from the barrel. Her eyes never blinked. Another rider cursed, drew fast. Her second shot split his hat clean through, grazing his skull. He dropped his gun, clutching blood, horse bolting. The rest shifted uneasy. Kane snarled, spittle flying. She ain't but a woman. Take her. Chaos erupted. Guns flashed, hooves pounded, men shouted wild. Jedediah fired from the porch, shot scattering wood. Ranch hands returned fire, but it was Mary who moved like the desert wind. Her rifle cracked steady, one after another. A rider fell, then another. Dust thickened, stinging eyes, choking throats. Still her aim cut true, each shot ringing like a hammer on steel. The townsfolk gasped from afar. Whispers hissed sharp. She don't miss. By God, she's cutting them down. Through the smoke, Kane drove straight for her, pistol raised, horse barreling fast. Mary stepped forward, coat snapping, rifle lifted high. His bullet ripped past her shoulder, grazing cloth. Her return fire split his hat, grazing his ear. He swerved, wheeling his horse hard, circling her. You ain't no widow, he spat, circling like a wolf. Her gaze locked on him, unshaken. I was riding before you could crawl. Recognition flashed across his face, then fury. He spurred his horse again, charging headlong. Mary's rifle cracked once. The bullet struck true. Kane jerked back, mouth open, eyes wide, then toppled from the saddle into the dust. Silence swept the yard. His men rained hard, faces white. Without their leader, their courage broke. One by one, they wheeled and fled, hooves fading fast into the canyon. Smoke hung heavy. Bodies lay still in the dirt. The ranch stood untouched behind her. Mary lowered her rifle, breath steady. Jedediah stepped beside her, shotgun lowered, his hand brushing hers in silence. From the town, murmurs rose, growing louder, rippling like wind through wheat. She stood him down. Alone, she faced Kane's gang. Not cursed, blessed with steel. Children's eyes shone wide. Women pressed hands to mouths. Men shook their heads in awe. The widow was no longer frail in their sight. She stood carved in legend, smoke curling from her rifle, hair loose in the rising sun. The preacher crossed himself. Harland whispered hoarse, "God save us." But Mary did not look their way. Her eyes stayed on the horizon, where the dust of Kane's riders dwindled into nothing. The land fell quiet. Wind rustled through broken grass. A raven called, harsh and lonely. Jedediah spoke at last, voice low. "It's done." Mary nodded once, set her rifle against the porch rail. Her hands, steady as ever, brushed the dust from her coat. In town, the story took root before the bodies cooled. By dusk, they said she shot 5 men clean. By nightfall, it was 7. Some swore she never blinked. Others claimed Kane begged before he fell. The truth mattered little. The tale spread, carried on wagon wheels and cattle trails, reaching saloons far from that valley. In the years after, when men gathered around fires and the wind howled across the canyons, the story was told the same. Of the widow who bore torment in silence, until she rose with steel in her hands. Of the rancher who stood beside her, and the gang that broke against her aim. Some swore her footsteps still echoed in the dust, if you listened close on a lonely night. Others said the desert itself bent quiet when her name was spoken. Mary Whitlock, they called her once. Mary Cole, she became. But to those who kept the story burning, she was something greater still, the widow of iron.